So we've been doing a sermon series, and this week's events reminded me of a time where back in the day when you were watching TV and you got a regular scheduled program that you always watch, you would get interrupted by part in your regularly scheduled program. We have a special report. So I'm interrupting your regularly scheduled series with something that's not on topic. So your insert today is not going to make any sense with what I'm talking about today. With that being said, water is water, right? Mm-mm. When I thought about this, I was reminded of a time when I lived in Columbus, Texas for a while, and so in the summertime I would go back to visit my bestie. We've been besties for over 40 years. We've been besties for a hot minute. And we were outside and we were playing. I was probably about 12 at the time when I came back. And we were hot, so I go running into the house to turn on the faucet to get a sip of water, and before Wanda could stop me and say, wait, remember, I took a good glug or two of water that tasted a lot like sulfur. And I was like, and then I couldn't contain the last gulp. I spewed it. But that's to go to say that there are so many things in life where we think water's water. The faith that we practice, other people practice it the same way we practice it, but not really. And y'all know for me that I will share with you things that I wrestle with, because this does not make me have it all together. But it makes me wrestle with life events a little more earnestly. And this week's event, so we had, Unity had World Day of Prayer on Wednesday. We also had the anniversary of 9/11. And we also had the assassination of somebody. And it's really made me reflect on, one, how do I live my faith? And two, the different emotions that came from the death of somebody this week. I had to actually put my phone down for a while because there was this person was brilliant, this person was a child of God, this person practiced their faith perfectly, to this person made comments that I am less than I am because of who I am. And I really, wrestled with all of it. Wrestled with how I felt, because there were parts of me that were the object of the hate speech. I'm not a saint. I've said ugly things. We all have. But how do we process the fact that we don't practice our tenets of faith? We don't practice them, and sometimes the faith that we share is used as a tool to oppress somebody. And folks, if you're Christian and you think we haven't done it, read some history. Because we've done it. We've done it. We've hurt people. We've genocide people. And I really struggle with the fact that it still perpetuates. As much as we talk about our oneness, as much as we talk about our togetherness, there's still this rub of fear for whatever reason that can't recognize that there's light in everybody. So I really spent a lot of time pondering this week. Lately, I haven't seen, and it's interesting because you can place people in a box, and we tend to do that when we see people missing the mark. In Unity, we see sin as not part of you that's horrible and rotten. It's we miss the mark. We make mistakes. We do stupid stuff. We say hateful things. Human. But how do I process the fact that somebody killed was, in one viewpoint, viewed as a martyr, and another viewpoint, some people might have had a sigh of relief? Not to celebrate a death of somebody. Do not get me wrong here. Please don't get me wrong here. But I would imagine the people that sighed a little bit of relief, if we're being honest, and I believe in being fully transparent and fully honest, that's one less person to say other people are dumb. That's one less person to say racist remarks. That's one less person to recommend that other people are better off dead. That's one less person to say that civil rights heroes are awful, and it's one less person to say that Jim Crow laws kept black people in line. Y'all, I didn't think I'd get this emotional up here. This person was also somebody's daddy. And I know from working in foster care, kids love their parents no matter what. And we have to think about the perspective that we have, that there are so many different angles of how we can see people. And I would like to think that when children see their daddy, they see the same kind of daddy that I have. And while having empathy for a wife without a husband and children without a dad, empathy expressed for loved ones whose deceased loved one called the expression of empathy a weakness. And for me, empathy is one of the most Christ-like things we can express. It is part of how we recognize the humanness in other people. Nobody deserves to die for their sin of not seeing all of God's creation as holy. Period. Doesn't need to happen. When we don't see the spark of the divine in all of creation, we are missing the mark. So I fully recognize in my, this person shouldn't have done this, I am casting judgment. Because I'm seeing the parts that were not the best, and it was harder for me to see the light. And so, how do we move through this? And to me, I would imagine moving through how we work through this is like walking through wet concrete. And it's not easy. But I think we could stay firmly founded in our faith that recognizes the light in everyone. For some of us, it is our new faith, Christianity, and for others, it's a different faith. But the one common thing that I have found in all faiths is love. It is the tenet that is common across the board. Love one another. And so, where I usually have slides where I click through these points, I'm just focusing on the water to recognize that this analogy will come to full fold, I promise. So how do we practice our practices? How do we practice our faith when things feel off kilter, when things feel off center, when we feel like we're cast into judgment, especially when someone's, and this is where for me, there's a difference in opinion and beliefs that cause other people or want other people to be oppressed. You can think somebody's a jerk, but I wish them the highest and best. But if you wish somebody something because of who they are and you wish to suppress their freedoms, wish to suppress for them being able to be themselves, that sits a little different for me. So how do we move through this muck? And one of those ways is prayer. In my changing the game plan this week, I called Lainey and I said, I have an ask. Can you please do power of prayer like you did on Wednesday night and do it again? Because we have that tendency when we see something that somebody else, and we think we need to fix them. We think they need to see right, align right, do right, whatever. And yes, other people need prayer, but it's not a prayer in a way that I would see it as, may this person awaken to see the light within themselves, within everybody. But even more than that, it brings it back to me. How in my prayer practice, because I am the person that needs prayer, I am the person that needs to open my heart, I am the person that needs to realize, oh, I just tipped my little toe into the pool of judgment. And so when we move through this prayer, prayer is not intended to solely change other people. It can. I've seen a lot of healing happen for people praying for other people. But prayer is really to change us personally. How can we see the light in everybody? How can we forgive and set boundaries? Because you can forgive and still keep yourself safe, right? How can we use our platform or privilege to lift others up instead of tear people down? As long as I have any kind of a platform, I will lift you up, cheer you on, and encourage you in any way that I can. How can we create a safe place for all people so they don't have to worry about which bathroom do I go to? Which way should I dress? Am I safe to walk on this side of the street or that side of the street? Is somebody going to move 20 feet away from me because of how I look? Because they're scared? How can we heal the hurt in this world? How can we embrace the holiness in everyone? And this brings back to the common thread, the common point of love. We need to practice it. And biblically, there's a line that says, love your enemies. But think about it. Loving someone and allowing someone to do things that hurt other people is not fulfilling the tenet of love. So if we are called in our love to speak up, perhaps we're called to speak up. Say it in your fear, say it standing needing to be brave, and saying it even if your voice shakes. If you say something outwardly that causes someone else to lose their freedom, to be oppressed, that is not loving. It is not practicing the faith that we say we believe. And grieve together. Man, I grieved a lot this week. I grieve the fact that we lost sight of God's abundance and we think that we have to oppress people to have what we want. And we've all done it to some degree. We manipulate a situation. We determine that someone's out of balance, and so that we haven't even taken the time to pull the plank out of our own eye because we're worried about the speck in somebody else's. I grieve the fact that some people are so hurt that they cannot see the humanity in others. I grieve the fact that we have been so manipulated that we fail to pause before we cast our opinions. In this world of social media, so many opinions get presented to us, I ask that you take the time to fact check what comes across your social feed. Because there are thoughts, comments, suggestions, opinions that are created to create the friction, to create the drama, to create a chance for us to forget we're human. I grieve the fact that we have not learned from our collective mistakes. I can remember marching in a protest with a friend of mine. Gosh, it's probably been about 10 years. And it was to request a fair trial for someone. Because I truly believe that when that news came across, that something wasn't right. And I think this person was framed in a way, or wasn't given the full opportunity to prove the innocence. And I remember standing at the courthouse, looking around, and I asked my friend, when is this going to stop? And it's pertinent to the story to let you know that this friend of mine is black. We went to high school together. And she turned to look at me and she said, Les, it's been like this a long time. And I said, I know, but I had hopes in my innocence, in my seeing everybody as divine, that somehow humanity would wake up and it would stop. I mean, for crying out loud, it's not really hard to love people. And so we marched. And as we marched, I passed a monument that was erected during the Jim Crow era in honor of fallen Confederate soldiers. And later, a few years later, actually it was in 2020, there was requests to remove that from the grounds. And I wrote a letter to the judge and I said, hey, I would like to see it gone, because there is this subtle way of people that are seeking power that makes it to where I'm just going to do a little flick. Here's this monument because they want something. They want people to feel like they're kept in place. That's the intention of that. Because if it was truly to honor somebody who had fallen, there would be a continuous thing years and years to come to honor something of a death of somebody. But that's not what that was for. And those microaggressions have this want to, this need to. But here's what I know to be true. Ain't nobody or nothing can steal your joy, and don't let anybody do it. However you are present in this world today, you are a child of God and you are loved, and you deserve the right to celebrate how you celebrate, dance how you dance, speak the language you speak, love the people that you love, and live life joyfully. So dance your dance. Love your people. Smile. And let the world know that love is all there is. Love is all there is. None of that was scripted. Forgive and expect more. Forgive and expect more. And this is where when I practice forgiveness, it's for you to be able to let go of the hurt so that you can live in that joy of letting stuff go. And I've been hurt really hurt. But it's not worth for me to carry it around. So for the person who abused me, I forgive you. I wish you the highest and best. I do not want to have family dinner with you, but I wish you the highest and best. And expect more. I think we let everybody off the hook when we go, oh, I forgive you, and you just let things go. Like sometimes we need to forgive and walk away because it's in our own best interest. But if you're given a situation where you forgive somebody but you have a teachable moment without forcing them to change, but just to have the conversation of, I need to share something with you. Because sometimes we can get a hurt, like if it's with words. Somebody may be oblivious to life that they didn't know that something that they said hit a nerve of something that happened to you years ago, and you're taking something that's not as big, but it's big because you had this core of hurt in you, that a conversation would say, next time you say something like that, think about what you're saying. That even goes to words that we used to use that are not proper to use anymore. Right? In some ways, we've evolved where we change our language on purpose. Grace in the midst of forgiveness. Grace does not mean that we continue to be mistreated. Grace means that you give the opportunity for others and you to readjust your actions. Grace does not mean you allow somebody to keep mistreating you. Grace means that you allow them the opportunity to adjust their aim. And the same goes for us. And it doesn't mean that you can't extend grace and still have those healthy boundaries if you need them. So I got to ask you, every dear, holy, and sacred one in here, do you commit to doing better? Yes. I do. I will commit to try when there is someone who spews hatred in a way that oppresses other people, to hold the highest and the best and the good life for that person. Because I think when that starts to unfold, that person may realize that what they're saying may not be the water that they claim to drink. Do you commit to living your faith, whichever faith it is, in a way that shines your light? To shine lights for others? Do you live in a way that you will shine and help others shine? I commit to doing that. And this, my friends, is how we bring about change. This is how, and we may not see it in our lifetime, but we could see little pieces of it unfold. And I ask you this, when you see cause to celebrate of someone doing something that rises somebody else above, or rises yourself above, or changes your perspective, to be in gratitude about that, to thank God for that. Because once we start recognizing those things, then the energy completely and totally changes around us. Our aura will change. You know how I've said before, like you could walk into a room and you can realize in the room that like if a major heated discussion has happened and you walk in and you're like, ooh, and you kind of want to back out of it. That's the same with us. People can feel what you're harboring, what you're holding on to. So if we decide that we can see love and light, that we can extend grace in a way where we can change, and people that we care about can change, and people that challenge us to the core of our being can see the light and be the light, then I think it is worth our effort and worth our time. And with that, I say my tagline, shine on, y'all.